Hello everyone, my name is Akal and I am a somatic therapist as well as an astrological counselor. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about the work I do, you can check out the website I have posted down below this video. So today, what I would like to talk about is, it's actually kind of a basic question I'm surprised I haven't answered yet, which is why should we work with sexual energy? Why should we indulge these various techniques that I've laid out in some of my other videos? Fair question. So I'm going to be pretty brief on this video. I don't want to belabor the point, but essentially the primary purpose, again, as I perceive it, so there's two ways to look at this. One is kind of the long game, sort of chronically over time. Why do we want to work with sexual energy? And that would be primarily because the individual is interested in enlightenment. So sexual energy, the best way to kind of put it is that if you picture a house or a building of any sort, it's actually the foundation that holds everything up above it. So sexual energy in a lot of ways is the foundational principle, along with your sort of security needs, which would be more kind of root issues. So security needs, safety, do you have food, water, shelter, those basic things in life. But secondarily, we're talking about this next level up in that sort of support structure, which is the sexual energy itself. The sexual energy itself is not only for procreation and for enjoyment and pleasure, which our culture indulges in greatly, but it's also for the process of enlightenment. The Chinese, well, not the Chinese, I'll say the Taoists. The Taoists have this idea, this description of what happens to sexual energy, in that it's what we're doing is we're learning to refine it, and we're refining it through the process of, to some degree, abstinence, so meaning not wasting it, so becoming very conservative in how you're dealing and working with sexual energy. The other thing is also the various sort of techniques that essentially utilize the musculature in the body as hydraulics. So we're creating pressure gradients and we're learning to move and circulate this energy. Now, how this energy is moved and circulated has a lot to do with the process of cultivating sensitivity, which is one of the second factors which I find highly, highly important in terms of understanding why we want to work with sexual energy. And that has to do with the fact that the horny feeling, when it's unevolved, and we'll call that, using the sort of Taoist template, we'll call that Jing, J-I-N-G. So Jing would be the kind of the raw form of sexual energy. So that raw form of sexual energy, it draws us into our form, it draws us into our bodies, into sensation and feeling. Now the yogis will say, or the tantra people will say, that when a man ejaculates, he loses his root. Now the loss of the root, as I perceive it, what they actually mean here is you lose your desire to connect with your body. So you're also depleting energy, which creates a sort of almost like an energetic deficit or an insecurity. So again, it interferes with the root issues. But most of all, like I said, I think it's really about that sort of, if I've ejaculated, I'm no longer interested in feeling and sensation. So men naturally fall back on their default strength, which is their intellect. So that's one of the other reasons. Another way to kind of look at that same sort of principle is the more connected with one's body, essentially you're harmonizing with a slower vibration. Like the mind would say, we'll say its vibration is like bee, it's this higher pitch frequency. We get kind of stuck in mental stuff. We get stuck in intellectualization. So we'll all call that kind of a higher pitch or frequency. You can make this sort of analogy to it being less dense, kind of like air. So if you look at it, the intellect, the mind, in some ways is being like air, less dense, the physical body being like earth, dense. So the process of wanting to connect to the body through sexual energy is a process of grounding. We're grounding into our form through feeling, through sensing. Now the ego will fight you on this. Because the ego wants to be kind of engaged in the mental stuff because we're conditioned to do that. We're conditioned by our school system, by our employment, et cetera, et cetera. Culturally, it's kind of this meme that goes around that pulls us out of our body, out of our form, and so hence we're very ungrounded. So again, the idea of sexual energy, horny rises, and this is where we can start to evolve that energy. So horny will rise. If we learn that energy follows awareness, then you can transmute this energy. And how you do that, real basically, is if horny rises, close your eyes briefly, inhale, deep breath, feel down, connect to the horny feeling. So you want to pull your energy towards your crotch, your groin, or wherever you feel horny at. You want to connect to that. And then you want to expand your awareness outward towards your fingertips and toes. So a bit like going from the center part of a star outward. So you want to expand outward to your fingertips and toes. And again, just feel and sense. Inhaling, exhaling, and then done. So literally it'd take about 30 seconds. Now, if you do this repeatedly, multiple times a day, I do it at the grocery store, I do it pretty much everywhere in public. Pretty much anywhere you feel that energy perk up, connect to it, inhale, exhale. Diaphragm behaves like a fan that will fan that energy around. And then it go to your fingertips and toes. And again, just feeling and sensing. And what you're doing here is you're rooting into something solid. You're getting out of your head. So again, highly valuable for grounding. And again, the body resonates at a slower frequency than the intellect and the mind, which again, in terms of being connected to the form, that's a good thing. Something else, and this is probably the most kind of superficial level you want to kind of perceive this. One other thing before I go into that. So that what you just did when you do this process of, connecting to your entire body as opposed to just focusing on the horny feeling, what you're doing there is you're actually converting, and we'll use again the Taoist template of raw sexual energy, Jing, into Qi. So Qi is subtle energy. So that would be a more, or you can call it prana if you wish. So Jing becomes Qi. And then over time, if you become very, very disciplined at these kinds of practices, and if your desire, your true desire is to move towards enlightenment, then eventually it becomes Shen, or spirit. So that's how it evolves. It goes from Jing to Qi to Shen. So going back to what I was talking about a moment ago, which is a more superficial aspect, but I don't think unimportant necessarily. It's just we're all kind of have different, paths in life and different desires and things we want to achieve in this life. For a lot of men, and probably women as well, but a lot of men, their interest is actually to have more profound sexual experiences. And unfortunately, you can't have these experiences by doing what you've always done. You have to change it up. And how you change it up is you take on new practices. You learn to abstain from ejaculation. You learn to connect breathing to your masturbation process. You learn to do any of a number of different practices in order to reconnect to that energy. But the abstinence is step one, is needing to abstain for ejaculation so that there's an adequate base pressure that's built up so you can have these more profound orgasms, and that goes along with multiple orgasms as well. In the next video I'm going to do, which I'm calling the Climax Crescendo, that video I'm going to go into a little more detail in terms of one way you can kind of approach this in terms of wanting to achieve more intense orgasm. There's a book called Kadoshka. I'm sorry, I don't have it with me, so I can't show you. It's Kadoshka. It's a Native American system that's kind of Tantra-ish. And it talks about this idea of magnitudes of orgasm, and I did another video on this. So magnitudes of orgasm, basically is always dependent on a couple of factors. One, do you feel really, really merged and connected with your partner? That's incredibly important. And if you're self-pleasuring, that means your partner is you. How connected to you are you? So do some yoga first. Do some breath work. Do any sort of activities that are centering. You want to center into your form, then go into the self-pleasure. And it's through that process of that you're going to have a more profound orgasm if you choose to have that, if you choose to move towards that. So, but again, the base level here is you need to understand that you have to abstain from ejaculation. I tell men all the time, like, who come to my workshops, you have to do at least 2 days. And that's just to have like kind of a base level pressure. That's kind of normal pressure. Now, if you want to have more profound pressure, you wait a week, you wait 2 weeks, you wait a month. Then you give yourself that release, and inevitably it's going to be much more powerful because it's all about the buildup. So with all that said, I think, yeah, I kind of feel like that's pretty much all I wanted to kind of talk about. I did mention grounding earlier, and one other thing I should say about it is that the more grounded in the form you are, the more connected to your body you are, it's actually an evolutionary point. Humans are here to evolve. We're here to grow. Sometimes that growth happens through negative or positive pressures. You know, something bad happens in life and it jars us into a new reality. Or sometimes something positive happens in life and it gives you a little bit of momentum to continue moving in that direction. So either way, life is well, generically speaking, it really truly is about growth and progress. So part of that is one's cultivation of emotional security. The more connected to your body you are, the closer you feel to your form, the more you're working with, let's say, the breath, the more you're going to feel, the more you're going to sense, and ultimately the braver you're going to be, the more centered you're going to be in order to confront any sort of emotional baggage or backlog that you might have. And so when you go into meditation, you simply are present. If you go into meditation feeling connected to your body, then what ends up happening is that emotional backlog can pass by objectively. You can perceive it as it passes by, and you're not necessarily stuck with it. You're not sort of like in it. Because the more in it you are, the more like kind of engrossed in that emotional backlog you are, the more you sort of freeze it in place. So with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you watching. Thank you.